We're very thrilled to have one of the co-founders of Blackstar Amplification here at Yupanco Gear Talks. Joining us today is Paul Hayhoe, who will be sharing with us his insights about Blackstar and its mission to help you achieve that sound in your head. How are you doing today, Paul?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Good to have you. Can you share with us a story behind the founding of Blackstar Amplification and how the idea was born?
So basically there were four of us who started Blackstar, four bald men. They were in the beginning, and we all met working at Marshall. 2004,
Yes.
the four of us left, and we had no money. We just had a lot of passion and a drive to do something.
Yeah.
So we worked from home offices, and Ian's garden shed was converted into a lab.
Nice.
So we put a bench in with the oscilloscopes and all the equipment. And all the early products were developed over a 3-year period working in that shed.
Okay.
So even the Series 1 200, which is a 200-watt tube head, was developed in a garden shed in the middle of a little town of Northampton. So luckily the police never got called. We didn't get into too much trouble, but it was in the summer it was pretty warm.
Yes.
And then in the winter it was literally, there was snow on the roof, it was freezing cold.
Nice.
So and then 2007 is when the company actually launched publicly.
Nice.
So we had 3 years undercover. And the brilliant thing is, right, when we had the luxury of time, really. So when you're in an established company and it's going, there's always a demand for new products. You're always on to the next thing. And in effect, we were able to let Bruce, who's our technical director, we had 3 years to look at every aspect of amp design.
Okay.
So everything from the input through to the output, we analysed and looked at, is that the best way it could be done? Because you know, in amp design, there's a lot of stuff that is just repeated up from history. Oh, it's always been done like that, so they just carry on.
True.
So we critically looked at every element from the input, the EQ stage, gain, to every step. And sometimes the way it's been done for the last 60 years was actually the best way. There was nothing to even think about there. It was still the best. But there's lots of little areas that we found where, why is it done like that?
Could be improved.
Exactly. It had only really been done like that for historic reasons. No one had really thought about it. And Bruce was a really unique individual in terms of, he was a real proper genius in terms of design. From analog design, valve design, but also digital as well. He could design on both platforms.
That's great.
And he had a really scientific approach to stuff. So he absolutely didn't believe in a black art or guruism. For him, it was about, it's a science. Understanding electronics is a science that we then use to create things that are used for a creative role. But you have to understand the science to really create the new product.
In your head. Who came up with the brand name?
So it's really interesting, right? So in our industry, lots of company names, it's somebody's name. Marshall, Fender, Laney, lots of names. But for us, we were always a team. So the four of us, we always think of it as like being in a band. So we didn't want it to be one of our names, which then created the obvious problem that we had to come up with a company name.
Yes.
So we had a big whiteboard and we spent ages brainstorming lots of different ideas. And then we would have a look, we check online, it's like, oh no, that's already registered in Japan or America. And the next night we'd have lots of coffee and another whiteboard session. So Blackstar came out of one of those discussions.
That's great.
And it was important to us, it had lots of layers of meaning. So black is a rock and roll color.
Yes.
Star is aspirational.
Of course.
It's the Malmsteen song, a Radiohead song. It's a celestial body. So it had all these kind of cool layers of meaning. And I think the thing that validated our choice was that David Bowie named his last album after us.
Of course,
You know that's true?
Yes. Have this code name, FBM Products.
Yes.
Can you explain what this is?
Yes. So in the 3 years that we were undercover, obviously lots of our friends and family were in the industry, and we didn't want people to know what we were up to until we were ready to launch the company. So we had a code name which was FBM Products. And when we were showing, we had to go to the bank to open an account, and they'd be like, well, M is probably Marshall and F is possibly Fender. You know, they were trying to work it out. But actually, it was just four bald men. Because all four of us choose not to wear a fringe, as we say.
That's great. How did this came about?
So while we were in the shed, during the day, Bruce was working on high power valve amps. Then in the evening, he would go home, and instead of relaxing, he was creating what became the algorithms, modeling those tube amps. Okay. So component by component, he was building up these digital models of the analog products he was designing during the day. And eventually, what became ID series, our first digital amps, which had the True Valve Power patent on them, all came out of those original algorithms. So it's the patent, the True Valve Power patent, is around the sound shaping, but it's also the power delivery. So a valve amp peaks at about 2.5 times the power of a solid state equivalent.
Okay, yes.
So a 40 watt tube amp is like a 100 watt solid state amp.
Yes.
Okay, in terms of sound. So what TVP does is it applies 2.5 times the power at the key frequencies to give you that resonant thump and that presence lift. And then we have the tone shaping as well. So it's not just brute power, it's all the feel and the sag and response that you get from the different tubes.
That's great. So that's why it was loud.
That's why it's very loud, yes.
And it was great for gigging, actually. In order for you to use your pedals quite efficiently, you would have to have a very good, powerful, clean amp.
Yeah.
But that option to select all of those sounds in the fly was awesome.
Yeah,
we appreciate
it's
that.
really.
How has your approach to research and development evolved since the company's inception? And what role does musician feedback play in the process?
It's really important to us to listen to musicians and customers, because ultimately what we're trying to do is create tools for musicians.
Yes.
So for us, it's always been about innovation and trying to give people new opportunities, new ways to create sounds. I often refer back to that Hendrix, some of the amazing sounds he was creating was by abusing equipment, using it in unusual ways, and being a monster player, obviously.
Of course.
And I like to think, is if he was alive today, what would he be using? Would he still be using the old gear, or would he be trying all kinds of new things, doing things we would never think of? So asking musicians that are out there creating new sounds, writing songs, seeing how they use the gear and how they want to use it.
Yeah.
That's part of the innovation that we want to do. It's like, how do we create those tools for them?
I think he would be experimenting on your amp.
Yeah, I really hope so. And I really hope it's been cool to meet some really great musicians while I've been here, and hearing them talk about how they use the amps and exploring it is a really cool thing.
Sure that your amplifiers can withstand the rigors of touring. And what specific testing processes do you employ?
Wow. In Northampton, at our office, we have an amp torture room.
Okay.
So basically, if you go to like an IKEA or a furniture store, and they have like a plunger going in and out of an armchair to test it. What we do to our amplifiers is the equivalent of that. Okay. So again, this is some bespoke design that Bruce came up with.
Yeah.
So we connect the amp up to the test equipment, have sensors all over it, and then we go over voltage, under voltage.
Oh, yeah.
Turn it on, turn it off, full volume, low volume. And it's on 24/7, cycling through all these different things. So in the course of a week, it's like simulating 5 or 10 years of normal life. And so the first thing is it has to survive all of that. Once it's survived that, the next step is we keep pushing it until it fails. And then we look at where it failed.
Okay.
And it's like, at what point did it fail? Is that a real life situation that could ever happen?
Yes.
Because we distribute all over the world, right? And there are some countries like in the outback in Australia, the voltage is like really funky.
Oh, yes, that's true.
So we have to be really confident that our product can withstand being plugged in anywhere in the world.
That's very cruel, especially on tube amps. Oh, solid state as well.
Yeah. And again, we do this for all of our products. And then obviously the manufacturing, they go through all the environmental testing as well. So hot and cold and rattle tests. And the infamous drop test as well.
Which is like phones, huh?
Yeah. So you basically, you have to drop it from arm height onto the floor. I think it's 10 times we do that. And again, it has to survive and has to still work.
That's great. So that's why we don't have any Blackstars in our service department.
Absolutely. But don't try this at home, please.